My fiancée had a bachelorette trip secret, but I caught her having slept with my own brother on her maid of honor's live stream. I canceled the wedding, sold the $50,000 ring, and left her pregnant with a man who has $0 in his bank account. I want to start with the live stream. Not the wedding deposit. Not the ring. Not the phone calls I didn't answer for 3 days after. The live stream. Because the live stream is the part nobody plans for. You can plan for a lot of things in a relationship. You can plan for arguments and silence and the slow erosion that happens when two people stop paying attention to each other. You cannot plan for your fiancé's maid of honor accidentally going live on Instagram at 11:47 p.m. on a Friday in a vacation rental in Sedona and leaving her phone propped against a nightstand lamp for 4 minutes and 31 seconds. 4 minutes and 31 seconds. That's how long it took to end a 6-year relationship, a $50,000 ring, a $34,000 wedding deposit, and whatever I thought I knew about my brother. My name is Reed Calloway. I'm 34. I'm an orthopedic surgeon. I finished my residency at 30 and have been in private practice for 4 years. I work long hours. I make good money. I was 3 weeks from marrying a woman I had been with since I was 28 and I was, by every external measure, exactly where I was supposed to be. My fiancée was Petra Calloway. Not yet. She never got there. She was Petra Vane, 31, an event planner. Good at it. Thorough. Creative. She planned our entire wedding herself because she said that's what she did professionally and she wanted control over every detail. I said fine. I paid every invoice she put in front of me without argument. The venue deposit. The catering. The florist. The photographer. The dress, which I was not supposed to know the price of but which appeared on our joint card statement as $8,400 from a bridal boutique in March. I didn't mention it. I just paid the statement. $34,000 total in wedding deposits and vendor payments by the time the bachelorette trip happened. All of it paid from my account. My brother is Nolan Calloway. 29. He sells cars. Not well. His income last year according to the taxes I helped him file because he asked me to help him file them was $31,000. He owed me $4,800 from a loan I'd given him 18 months prior when his transmission failed and he needed a car to get to the job where he sold cars. He was 4 months behind on repaying it. He was always behind on something. Nolan moved through life the way water moves through a damaged pipe. Following the path of least resistance. Spilling wherever the structure was weakest. The structure in this case was my relationship. The bachelorette trip was Sedona, Arizona. 4 days. Petra, her maid of honor Simone, and 4 other friends. She'd planned it herself, which made sense because she planned everything. The only thing she said to me about the trip was that the details were a surprise and she'd tell me after. A bachelorette secret. I said, have fun. I meant it. I was on call that weekend. I had 2 post-op check-ins Saturday morning and a full surgery schedule Monday. I was glad she was going. I was glad she'd have the trip before everything changed. I didn't ask about the details. I didn't check her location. I didn't go through her phone. I trusted her the way you trust someone you've been with for 6 years and are 3 weeks from marrying. Friday night I was home. 11:30 p.m. Post-op notes finished. I was on the couch with my phone doing the mindless scroll that happens when your brain is tired but your eyes aren't. Instagram. The algorithm. The usual drift. Simone's account appeared in my feed. I followed Simone. We'd met maybe 8 times total. She was Petra's college roommate. Nice enough. Loud. The kind of person who documented everything. I saw the live notification. Simone Achebe is live. I tapped it without thinking. The way you tap things at 11:47 p.m. when your brain is tired. The phone was propped against a lamp. The angle was awkward. The lighting was dim, that warm vacation rental yellow. I could see part of a bed. Part of a window. I could hear music from somewhere in the house. A playlist. Something with bass. I watched for about 15 seconds thinking it was an accidental live, phone left running while the party happened elsewhere. I was about to close it. Then I saw Petra. I won't describe what I saw in detail. There were 4 minutes and 16 seconds remaining at that point. I watched all of it. I did not look away. I did not put my phone down. I sat on my couch at 11:47 p.m. on a Friday 3 weeks before my wedding and I watched all 4 minutes and 16 seconds. Then I set my phone on the coffee table. I sat there for a while. I don't know exactly how long. Long enough for the living room to feel like a room I'd never been in. Long enough to understand that the house I was sitting in, which I owned, which I had been paying for, which I had imagined Petra and I growing into together, was now just a building I lived in alone. I picked up my phone at 12:31 a.m. 44 minutes after I set it down. The live had ended. Simone had apparently realized the phone was running. The comment section had been active. 23 comments before she ended it. I read them. Most were confused. 3 were not. I screenshotted everything. All 23 comments. The timestamp. The live duration. The account. I have a documentation habit for medicine. Everything gets recorded. Everything gets dated. Everything goes in a file. Then I made 4 calls. First call, my attorney. Daniel Farrow. He does my practice contracts and liability work. At 12:35 a.m. on a Friday I called Daniel Farrow's cell phone. He answered because I'm one of his larger clients and because he is a professional. I told him the situation in approximately 4 minutes. He said, okay. Monday morning, my office, 8 a.m. I said, I need to move faster than that on one thing. He said, which thing? I said, the ring. The ring was a custom piece. I had it designed 18 months earlier by a jeweler named Castellan who does high-end custom work in our city. Emerald cut center stone, 3.4 carats, specific color and clarity grades Petra had shown me in a magazine. Total cost, $50,200. I have the receipt because I have receipts for everything. It was insured separately from the house contents for $52,000. Daniel said, the ring is yours. You purchased it before the engagement, you retain ownership regardless of the circumstances. You can sell it whenever you choose. I said, Monday morning. He said, call Castellan when they open. Resale value on a piece like that through the right channels is 70 to 80%. He said, Reed. Are you sure about all of this? I said, 4 minutes and 16 seconds. Yes. Second call, my parents. My mother answered. She is a practical woman. I told her what I had seen. She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, where is Nolan? I said, Sedona apparently. She said, I'll call your father. I said, I'm handling it. She said, I know you are. I meant I'll tell him so you don't have to. Third call, the venue. I have the venue coordinator's cell because Petra had given it to me for emergency contact during the planning. I called at 12:51 a.m. and left a voicemail. I said, this is Reed Calloway. The wedding scheduled for the 14th needs to be cancelled effective immediately. I'll be in contact Monday to discuss the deposit situation. Fourth call, I did not call Petra. I went to bed at 1:15 a.m. I set my alarm for 6:30. I had post-op check-ins at 8. I slept. Not great sleep. But sleep. Because I am a surgeon and surgeons learn to sleep when they can because the work continues regardless of what is happening in your personal life and my patients needed me functional in the morning. Saturday. Post-op rounds. Both patients recovering normally. I was professional. Focused. Present. Because that is what the work requires and I do not bring my personal life into the operating room. Saturday afternoon I called Castellan. Explained the situation briefly. He was professional and appropriately discreet. He said, I can have a buyer for a piece like this within 48 to 72 hours. His secondary market contacts. People who buy estate pieces and custom work. He said, you're looking at 74 to 78 cents on the dollar given the current market. I said, fine. I dropped the ring off at his shop at 3:40 p.m. He signed a consignment receipt. The ring was no longer in my house by Saturday evening. Petra called me Saturday afternoon. I didn't answer. She texted twice. Having such a great time, wish you were here with a photo of a sunset that was beautiful and made me feel nothing. Then, an hour later, miss you. Can't wait to be Mrs. Calloway. I did not respond. Sunday she called 4 times. I let them all go to voicemail. I was not ready to have the conversation and I had learned in 6 years of surgical training that you do not perform a procedure until you have all the information and the correct instruments. I did not yet have all the information. I was waiting for Daniel. Sunday evening Simone texted me. I didn't know she had my number. She must have gotten it from Petra at some point. The text said, Reed, I need to talk to you about something. I'm so sorry. I need you to know it was an accident. I replied, I know. I saw it live. Send me the full recording if you have it. She sent it within 4 minutes. The full video from her phone's camera roll. Longer than the live stream. 7 minutes and 40 seconds. More complete. I sent it to Daniel. Monday. Daniel's office. 8 a.m. He had reviewed everything over the weekend. He laid out the situation with the precision that is why I pay him what I pay him. He said, the wedding deposits. $34,000 total. The venue contract has a cancellation clause, you'll recover $8,500. The catering deposit is non-refundable at this stage, that's $11,200 gone. The photographer has a partial refund clause, you'll get back $1,800 of the $4,200. The florist is negotiable. The dress is non-refundable by the boutique's policy but it's in Petra's possession so that's her problem. Total recoverable from deposits, approximately $14,600 out of $34,000. I said, what about the ring? He said, Castellan called this morning. He has a buyer. $39,800. You paid $50,200. Net loss on the ring, $10,400. But it's out of the situation. I said, fine. He said, total financial damage, approximately $29,600 when you account for unrecoverable deposits and ring loss. I said, what would the wedding have cost if I'd gone through with it and found out 6 months later? Daniel didn't answer that question. He didn't need to. He said, "Do you want to pursue any civil action against her or your brother?" I said, "No." "What would be the basis?" He said, "Arguably none that's worth your time. You want clean." I said, "I want clean." He filed the dissolution of the engagement through the appropriate legal channels. Formal notification to Petra and to Nolan through his office. Cease all contact requests on my behalf to both parties. Everything through Daniel from that point forward. Petra came home from Sedona Sunday evening. She called me 4 more times Sunday night. She texted, "We need to talk. Please. Read, please just answer." Then at 11 p.m., "I know you know." Monday afternoon she showed up at my house. I know because my doorbell camera recorded it. She rang 4 times. Knocked twice. Stood on the porch for 9 minutes. I was at Daniel's office. She left without a note. She texted, "I was going to tell you. I'm so sorry. It was one time, it meant nothing, I was scared, I love you, please." I read it. I forwarded it to Daniel. No response. Tuesday she called my office line. My receptionist, following the instructions I had given Monday morning, said, "Dr. Calloway is unavailable. She can take a message." Petra apparently left a 4-minute voicemail on my office line. My receptionist transcribed it and sent it to me per my instructions. I read the transcription. I forwarded it to Daniel. No response. Wednesday my mother called. She said, "Nolan came home." I said, "I know." She said, "He wants to talk to you." I said, "Through Daniel." She said, "Read. He's your brother." I said, "I know what he is." She was quiet. Then she said, "Your father isn't speaking to him. I want you to know that. We're not excusing this. I just want you to know we know." I said, "I know you do. I'll call you this weekend." She said, "The ring sold?" I said, "Monday." She said, "Good." Nolan texted me Thursday. Long text. The kind of text people write when they have been rehearsing the explanation in their head for days. It said he was sorry. It said it had started at a party 6 months ago, that Petra had pursued him, that he had tried to stop it, that he had been going to tell me, that he had never wanted this. It said he loved me and he was sorry and he didn't know what to do. 6 months. Not one time. 6 months. I forwarded the text to Daniel. I said, 6 months. Does this change anything legally? He said, no. I said, okay. I did not respond to Nolan. Friday, 1 week after the live stream, Castellan confirmed the ring sale was complete. $39,800 deposited to my account. I had paid $50,200 14 months ago in the belief that I was beginning something permanent. $39,800 for a ring that belonged on a different kind of story. Petra called Daniel's office on Friday. She told Daniel's assistant that she needed to speak with me urgently. Personal matter. Medical. Daniel called me. He said, she says it's medical. His voice had a specific quality it gets when he's about to say something he'd rather not. I said, how far along? He said, she hasn't said. She just said medical and urgent. I said, get the details. He called her back. She told him she was 8 weeks pregnant. She had found out 4 days before the bachelorette trip. She had not told me because she was scared. She had not told Nolan because she was scared. She had gone on the trip trying to figure out what to do and the trip had gone the way it went. 8 weeks. Daniel walked me through the timeline carefully. Conception would have been approximately 2 months before the bachelorette trip. The bachelorette trip was last weekend. This meant the conception window overlapped with both me and Nolan. Daniel said, we need a paternity test. I said, obviously. I want to tell you what I felt in that moment. I was sitting in my office between appointments. I had a patient in 20 minutes. And I was doing the calculation that every man in this situation does. The calendar math. The dates. The overlapping windows. The uncertainty. I am a surgeon. I deal in certainty. I need to know what I'm working with before I proceed. Uncertainty is how you make mistakes in an operating room, and it is how you make mistakes in the rest of your life. I said, get the test ordered. Daniel arranged for a prenatal paternity test. Non-invasive. Blood draw from Petra. DNA reference sample from me. Nolan would need to provide a sample as well. Daniel sent Nolan a formal request through the dissolution correspondence. Nolan complied within 48 hours. Whatever he isn't stupid enough to refuse a court-precedented paternity process. Results came back in 11 days. The child was not mine. I want to be clear about how I received this information. I was in my office. Daniel called. He said, read. The results are in. I said, tell me. He said, the child is not yours. 99.97% exclusion. I said, and Nolan? He said, 99.94% probability of paternity. I said, okay. Does this change my support obligations? He said, no biological connection, no legal support obligation in this state absent voluntary acknowledgement. You have nothing required of you here. I said, then we're done with that question. He said, Reed. Are you okay? I said, I have a patient in 10 minutes. I'll call you this afternoon. I saw my patient. I was present. Focused. Professional. Because that is what the work requires. That afternoon I called Daniel. I said, what does Nolan's financial situation look like right now? Daniel said, I did some checking when the paternity question came up. His checking account as of the most recent bank statement we could access through the legal process has a balance of $0. Not near zero. Zero. He has a car payment 60 days past due. He owes you $4,800. His income is $31,000 a year on a good month. I said, she left a $50,000 ring and a surgeon for a man with $0 in his bank account and a 60-day past due car payment. Daniel said, that is an accurate summary. I said, what is the child support calculation going to look like for Nolan? Daniel said, based on his income, approximately $620 per month. On $31,000 gross. He'll have roughly $2,000 a month left after taxes and child support and his current debt obligations. Before rent. Before food. I said, and Petra's income. He said, her event planning business showed $58,000 last year. She's been operating out of your address. She'll need to relocate. Between rent, a new business address, childcare, and living expenses, she's going to find things very tight. $620 from Nolan. On $31,000. While I was paying $50,200 for a ring that is now in someone else's jewelry box. I am not going to tell you I felt nothing about the paternity result. I am going to tell you that what I felt was specific and clean. Not grief for losing a child. I had not yet allowed myself to want a child in that situation. What I felt was the final confirmation of a calculation that had been running since 11:47 p.m. on a Friday. Every variable resolved. Every unknown answered. The equation was complete. I had no further obligations to either of them. Petra called one more time. 2 weeks after the paternity results. She did not go through Daniel. She called my cell. I answered because I had decided I would answer once. One conversation. Then done. She said, Reed. I know you got the results. I know the baby is Nolan's. I need you to know that I'm scared. I don't know what we're going to do. I don't have anywhere to go. Nolan doesn't have any money. I made a terrible mistake and I know that and I'm terrified. I listened to all of it. Then I said, you planned a wedding for 3 years, Petra. Every detail. You said you wanted control over every detail because that's what you do professionally. And for 6 months while you were planning every detail of our wedding you were also making another set of decisions. Those decisions have outcomes. The outcome is that you're scared and Nolan doesn't have any money. That's the event you planned. She said, Reed, please. I said, through Daniel. I hung up. The $4,800 Nolan owes me. Daniel filed a small claims action. Nolan did not contest it. Judgment entered in my favor. He has not paid. He will not pay on $31,000 a year with child support and a car payment and wherever he's living now. But it is documented. It sits in a file. The venue is booked for something else now. Some other couple's beginning. The photographer's rescheduled. The florist has other orders. The world moved on from the wedding that didn't happen with the efficiency that the world always moves on. The house is mine. Quiet. The way it was before Petra's things started appearing in it 6 years ago. Her shampoo is gone from the shower. Her books are gone from the nightstand. Her handwriting isn't on the grocery list anymore. The grocery list is just mine now. I make dinner most nights. I confirm reservations when I make them. I go to work. I perform surgeries. I follow up on patients. I track everything because tracking things is what I do and what I have always done and what saved me $34,000 worth of regret by sitting on a couch at 11:47 p.m. and tapping an accidental live stream. Simone texted me once more. 3 weeks after everything. She said, I'm so sorry, Reed. I hope you know it was an accident. I hope you're okay. I replied, I know it was an accident. Thank you for sending the full video. She said, are you okay? I said, I will be. That's the honest answer. Not I'm fine. Not I'm great. I will be. Because I am a surgeon and surgeons are honest about recovery timelines. You don't tell a patient they'll feel better tomorrow when better is 3 months away. You tell them what's true and you build the plan and you follow it. The plan is, work. Patience. The house. The quiet. The time that surgery teaches you to respect because it moves in one direction and you cannot get it back. 4 minutes and 31 seconds. One accidental live stream. $39,800 for a ring that should have stayed in the case. And a brother who has $0 in his bank account and a baby on the way on $31,000 a year. She planned every detail of the wedding she didn't have. She forgot to plan for the phone propped against the lamp. I would have confirmed the reservation. She just never gave me the chance.